For decades, the Arctic was a frozen barrier that shaped the limits of global power. Today, that barrier is collapsing faster than predicted, revealing something no one expected: a new geopolitical landscape with Canada positioned at its center. What is emerging is not just a warmer Arctic, but an entirely new map that will change global trade, security, and strategic influence over the next decade. As the ice retreats, a transformation is unfolding that few governments fully anticipated. A region once defined by isolation is becoming accessible, economically valuable, and strategically contested. The world is only beginning to grasp what this means for global power structures. Canada now stands at the crossroads of this shift. Its Arctic coastline, vast archipelago, and underexplored resources are moving from the periphery of national strategy to the core. The Northwest Passage, once viewed as a distant maritime curiosity, is becoming part of a global conversation about trade routes and sovereignty. If you want to understand the real power plays shaping our world, consider subscribing. The first signs of this change appear in the northern sea routes, slowly opening each summer. What used to be locked in ice for most of the year is now becoming passable for long enough to attract serious commercial interest. Asia, Europe, and North America could soon be connected through corridors that bypass traditional choke points like the Suez and Panama canals. At the heart of this shift lies the Northwest Passage. This complex chain of narrow waterways is positioned inside Canada's Arctic archipelago, a maritime geography unlike any other on Earth. For decades, most of the world saw it as irrelevant because no ship could rely on it. Today, shipping companies and governments are re-evaluating that assumption, recognizing that even partial accessibility changes the global logistics equation. The possibility of rerouting global commerce through Canada's northern waters introduces a strategic variable with profound implications. Shorter distances, reduced fuel costs, and new trade patterns could reshape economic relationships. Canada, long overshadowed by larger powers, finds itself holding leverage over a corridor that could alter the flows of goods and strategic materials. Yet the Northwest Passage is only the beginning. Beneath the receding ice lies a resource frontier that has been inaccessible for millennia. Critical minerals essential for batteries, clean energy systems, and advanced manufacturing are embedded across Canada's northern shield. These include nickel, cobalt, rare earth elements, and deposits that major economies depend on for industrial resilience. Energy resources are also part of this emerging picture. Offshore basins hold oil and natural gas that have been difficult to assess, let alone extract, due to extreme ice cover. As conditions shift, these resources are becoming more accessible, and major powers are watching closely. The Arctic approach to freshwater availability, fisheries, and biological resources further amplifies the region's importance as the global population increases and environmental pressures intensify. This is why Canada's territorial claims matter in ways they never did before. International law, historical precedent, and domestic legislation all intersect in the Arctic, creating a legal landscape where sovereignty is both clear and contested. Canada maintains that the Northwest Passage is internal waters. Several other countries argue it is an international strait. The stakes of that disagreement rise each year. If the passage becomes a viable trade route, the legal interpretation will determine who controls shipping, environmental regulation, and security enforcement. These questions place Canada at the center of a debate with implications far beyond its borders, influencing the strategic behavior of the US, China, and European allies. If this analysis is giving you clarity, a quick like helps this reach more viewers. As global interest intensifies, Canada is racing to modernize its Arctic capabilities. New icebreakers are being commissioned after decades of limited investment. Ports and resupply stations are undergoing upgrades to handle increased maritime traffic. Surveillance systems are being expanded to monitor vessels passing through complex northern waters. Military infrastructure is also evolving. Canada and the US are jointly modernizing the NORAD early warning system, replacing aging radars with advanced sensors capable of monitoring Arctic airspace. This is driven not only by commercial expansion, but by shifting military strategies among major powers. Hypersonic weapons, long-range bombers, and submarine deployments are now part of Arctic planning. Russia's posture reinforces the urgency. It has built or renovated more than a dozen military bases across its northern coastline and operates the world's largest icebreaker fleet. These capabilities allow Russia to project influence across Arctic shipping lanes and resource zones. The opening of the Northern Sea route along Russia's coast has already altered shipping patterns between Europe and Asia. China adds another layer of complexity. Although it has no Arctic territory, it describes itself as a near-Arctic state and has invested in research stations, shipping partnerships, and mineral exploration projects across the region. China views the Arctic as part of its long-term energy and resource security strategy, and any major development in the region intersects with its global ambitions. The US, meanwhile, sees the Arctic as an extension of its strategic competition with both Russia and China. Washington is strengthening its diplomatic, military, and economic presence, often turning toward Canada as a critical partner. Canada's geographic position makes it indispensable for Arctic aviation corridors, naval access, and military coordination. Amid this rivalry, Canada's influence grows. It does not possess the size or military scale of other major powers, but it holds something increasingly valuable: jurisdiction over territory that other nations want access to, data from, or partnership with. The Arctic is shifting from an unclaimed frontier to a zone of overlapping interests, and Canada sits at the junction of those interests. The transformation extends beyond geopolitics into infrastructure and technology. New fiber optic projects are being proposed to run across the Arctic seabed, linking continents through colder, more stable environments. These routes could reduce latency, expand redundancy in global networks, and provide secure alternatives to existing corridors vulnerable to sabotage. Cold region data centers are another emerging frontier. Lower temperatures reduce cooling costs, and remote locations offer physical security advantages. As artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and digital logistics expand, these regions gain value in ways earlier generations never considered. Energy corridors are also part of the long-term picture. As global demand shifts toward cleaner fuels, Arctic wind potential, hydro resources, and pipeline routes could reshape regional energy strategies. Countries seeking supply diversification will look to partners with stable institutions and reliable governance. Canada fits this profile, and its northern regions may become part of future energy architectures. Climate dynamics amplify these shifts. As some regions face increasing heat stress, water scarcity, and agricultural disruption, Canada's long-term stability, freshwater availability, and vast landmass become more significant. Migration patterns may shift, economic opportunities may expand, and northern development could accelerate as infrastructure improves. Cumulatively, these forces, trade, resources, security, technology, and climate, converge to create a strategic moment for Canada, unlike any in its modern history. It is not merely benefiting from melting ice. It is gaining influence over the systems that will shape global power in the decades ahead. The next decade will test Canada's ability to convert this opportunity into lasting geopolitical leverage. If the Northwest Passage becomes a competitive shipping corridor, Canada will gain influence over maritime rules, environmental standards, and commercial flows. If critical minerals development accelerates, partners dependent on secure supply chains will deepen their engagement. If defense modernization continues, Canada will strengthen its role within alliances shaping Arctic security. Canada must balance these opportunities with the responsibilities of stewardship. Infrastructure must expand while protecting fragile ecosystems. Sovereignty must be asserted while maintaining constructive diplomacy. Partnerships must be strengthened while ensuring national interests remain central. The Arctic is no longer a distant horizon. It is becoming one of the most strategically contested regions on the planet, and Canada now stands closer to the center of that contest than ever before. Melting ice is exposing not only resources and routes, but but long-term geopolitical leverage that few expected Canada to hold. Where this leads depends on choices made in the years ahead, choices that will shape trade networks, alliance structures, and global competition across the world's newest strategic frontier. Where do you think this situation is heading and why? Share your perspective below.